Welcome back to College Football Addiction. Special guest today, Savanah 2J. And I was commenting to you, that name is a lot harder to pronounce when you're just reading it. But, it was easier for me today after doing some research.
Yeah, I always tell everyone, everyone asks all the time. And I'm like, it's what's in the handle, 2J. And they're like, what? I never put two and two together. I'm like, yeah, it's really that easy.
Yeah, it totally went over my head too. Here I am researching, finding interviews with your dad, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and hearing other people say it. I was like, well, let me listen to one more person say it just in case. And yeah, I made it a lot harder than it needed to be. We're going to talk about a few things today, but first let's start where everybody either loves or hates to start. Let's start with the SEC. Let's just give me an overall take here. And maybe let's back up just a little bit because we're going to talk a little bit about this in a later episode or a later segment. But you just born and raised college football, huge sports fan. Your dad is a coach for NC State offensive line, if that's right.
Yep, and run game coordinator.
So you are deep in this thing, and then you have a pretty good following on social media and have certainly gone viral with some stuff. But just to give a little background, to give a little perspective of people maybe tuning in and saying, who is this on here? Which they say that about me, and I've done the show for 2 years now. But what's your take on the SEC right now and just the marketing machine that it is, and the best conference, the deepest conference, just everything that goes on with when you hear SEC football? What's the take?
Yeah, great question. So I would say my initial reaction is it's where the most money is. So they should be the best conference. And that's bottom line. And I don't think that's a hot take, and I think everyone knows that they have the most money. So I would expect top to bottom, you're the best if you have the money to spend for it. Because these days, college football is that. Where the money is where the teams that can compete for a national championship are. But I think it was said in Big 12 media days, someone said, we're not going to get into what Stinetti said, but I think somebody said something that was I don't think they're a top to bottom conference that's super strong. I think they have heavy hitters at the top and the rest is mediocre. And that's probably a perfect description of my opinion of the SEC.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The couple thoughts I have quickly on that are certainly a lot of money. I wonder if the Big Ten is changing that some. I wonder if the investment that you've gotten out of programs like Michigan and Ohio State and Oregon for sure, there are less teams, I think, willing to spend that kind of money. But I wonder if that's somewhat changing. I kind of think about, and I know we'll talk about ACC in a minute, but I kind of think of Notre Dame in that Big Ten realm. Just we all kind of know that's eventually probably what's going to happen. And now Texas is a whole different dynamic when it comes to money, I would say, for the SEC. But I also don't really think about Texas being a SEC team, right? They are, and I'm not trying to take that away or anything, but that's not who comes to mind. And then they're very top heavy, if we can be honest. Now, I would say they have more teams that can compete. Their top heaviness is better than the ACC's top heavy or the Big Ten even's top heavy. But I do think has the SEC, and this is maybe a good question to kind of follow it up with, has the SEC being had they spread themselves too thin? Because where they used to be so great was, listen, we know that Alabama and Georgia, and I know LSU had a good run in there, but even back to the Florida days of Meyer, this conference was really propped up by a few good teams at most. Really, it's been Georgia, Alabama, and LSU, for the last since Tebow was gone. And so are they spread too thin now to where, they've got a lot of really good teams, but it's going to be tougher because they just wear each other out all year. And then Ohio State's sitting there at the end of the year let's go, man. We're ready for this. So I don't know. I think that maybe to their own detriment, they've done that a little bit.
No, that's a really good point, actually. And I hate to feed into their narrative of our schedule's tougher than everybody's all year when teams like Cal and the ACC are beating Auburn. And I know they both finished last in their conference or close to it, but our bottom dwellers are doing better than some SEC bottom dwellers. But I do think that's a good thing to point out. And I think that a big portion of that is that money. Now teams like Texas and Tennessee and all the schools can drop bags because it's legal. And not that to say that they weren't doing it before, but now they can drop equal money to schools like Georgia and Alabama. So I do think that it's more watered down because now those kids can go to other schools instead of at time there was you're either going to Alabama to win a national championship or you're not, or you're going to another school where you're not winning one. And so I think now the fact that everybody has the opportunity to spend the same amount or whatever they can, it's definitely watered it down. I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Florida, and I don't like Florida, obviously being an FSU guy, but like, you look
Yeah,
at Florida, like there is no reason that they should have had a top 10, let alone 15 class for the last 4 years. Like they've been
yeah,
terrible. But Florida has really good resources, whether I want to admit that or believe that or not. And so
for
they are
sure.
pulling guys. And are they winning every battle head to head with Georgia? No, Georgia's winning more, but they're winning a
Yeah,
couple of battles against Georgia. They're winning a couple of battles against Texas. Dylan Stewart going to South Carolina, Missouri pulling a couple of 5 stars. Those guys got to not go somewhere, right? Like if Missouri's getting 5 stars, no shade at Missouri, that's one less guy that
none.
Texas is getting, right? Like that's one less guy that A&M's getting or whoever. And so, yeah, I do think that you are spreading it more thin. Ole Miss recruits, well. Tennessee recruits well, and it's not just for so long. It was Georgia, Alabama, and LSU, and those programs are still recruiting better than almost everybody else, right? Like they're not, but there's not as much of a gap. It's not,
Yeah,
and Texas is obviously up there too. It's not this gap of like, oh yeah, we are far and above. Whereas in the Big Ten, it still is Ohio State and Oregon at the top. And then Michigan's right there too. But it still is like these are the programs that recruit really well. And then there's a gap. There's Penn State, right? And then there's, whomever is next. I do think that creates the more parity you have in your league, the tougher it is to say, yeah, these are our elite teams. Because who are the elite teams? I mean, everybody thinks Texas will be really good this year. I think they will. But who knows, man, until you really see it happen.
I think that South Carolina has a good shot. And to be honest, I'm not a Florida Gator either, but I do think that they have a good shot. Right now, they have the winningest record against the SEC. They have 4 wins in a row. That's the best record against the SEC amongst their conference right now. So I wouldn't count any of them out. I think another thing, too, and maybe this is a perspective of being a coach's kid, so I won't get too into it because I know we'll talk about that, is that there used to be this big thing where kids, like, the kid's going to go to the school in state, right? The kid's going to go to the hometown school or whatever's closest to him. And I think with the way that the trajectory of college football is going these days too, like gone are those days where the kid goes and becomes the hometown hero at the school that is closest to where he grew up. I think that that's kind of gone also. So I think that plays a big role into kids going other places and spreading them more thin as well.
Yeah. And we both live in Florida. And so you think about like the big three in Florida used to keep everybody home, like Florida, Florida State, Miami, nobody left. And there was a battle between the state, but all those programs are really good. And I think and I think this happened even really before NIL or I think what it was the way that TV started covering college football. Because
Yeah.
why did kids stay home? Because they want to leave mom. Like they wanted mom to be able to see the school or the game. And you asked your dad this, he'd say the same thing, I'm sure. They wanted to be able to see the game or at least travel to it, right? You live in Orlando, you can get to Tallahassee in a day and back, no big deal. And now, I mean, you can get to Columbus in a day and a half. You can get to, or in a day and back. You can get to, Clemson, South Carolina. You can get to Eugene in like a weekend. Like it's not. And so the way that flights became incredibly cheap and the way that TV really carried the game nationally, it screwed over states like Florida that have an insane amount of talent. And now, Florida's the three schools in Florida making bad hires and doing, playing poorly on the field. That hurt them too. But
Yeah.
they don't have a stranglehold on that talent anymore. I mean, LSU is probably the best example of it, though. Keeping ingrown talent home, I don't think anybody does it as well as they do in Baton Rouge. Like there are some places like Mississippi does a good job of that, but their programs have been up and down as well. There are some places where I think that state pride still means something, and to different kids, it means different things for sure. But I think LSU probably does it better than anybody. They keep guys home that they want. It's tough to get guys out of that state.
Yeah, I would agree. I think LSU does it best. That hands down. I don't think anybody's close except for if you're talking early 2000s Florida and Southern California. Because
Yeah.
like I think it's sad to see kids go away. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying that as a kid who moved states for college. I'm saying that as a brother who lives across the country to play college football.
Yeah.
I don't mean to, and like you got to do what's best for your situation. But I do think college football is better when you keep in-state kids in state. Like a legend at NC State. I know we're talking SEC, but like Peyton Wilson, he went to school down the street and he's a legend and he always will be. And so it's like it's a bummer that we missed out on that, but I think it creates a different type of college football that we have these days. And I think LSU will always compete at the top because they're able to keep in-state talent, especially if you're able to keep the top in-state talent. And so I think they do it better than anyone. And maybe that's just because all they have is LSU football in that state.
Yeah.